Welcome guys, welcome back to the Chemistry Simplified classes, and today we are going to start with the lectures of class 10th chemistry. The first chapter is chemical reactions and equations. Chemical reactions and equations. So in this chapter, we are going to learn about the balancing of a chemical equation, reaction, and also the different types of reaction. So from our previous knowledge, we have learned in class 9 what are the cations, what are the anions, how we write a chemical formula. So a quick reminder of the cations, anions, and how we write chemical formulas, and then we proceed on to knowing what is a chemical reaction. So we know what is a cation. When we talk about a cation, cations are those positive charges, those ions, like for example, elements, we know that these are the electropositive elements which have a tendency to lose electron. So metals, on losing electrons, they form positive ions. For example, aluminium. Aluminium atomic number is 13. Electronic configuration is 283. So it can lose 3 electrons in order to form 3 positive charge, Al3+. Sodium, which is 11, electronic configuration is 281, can lose 1 electron to form Na+. Similarly, magnesium is 12, electronic configuration is 282, can lose 2 electrons to form Mg2+. And so on. There are various metals which can form the monovalent, bivalent and trivalent ions. For example, Ba2+, then we have Cu2+, Fe2+, Fe3+, Zn2+. All these are the positive cations because they have a tendency to lose electrons. Another, we have anions. What are anions? Now non-metals, they have a tendency to accept electrons. They can gain electrons in order to form the negative ions. For example, chlorine, it is 17, 287, has a tendency to gain 1 electron to form Cl-. Oxygen is 26, can get 2 electron to form O2-. Nitrogen is 7, 25, can get 3 electron to form N3-. Sulfur 16, 286, can get 2 electron to form S2-. Similarly, various other anions like Br-, I-, F-, OH-, all these are the anions. Now, in order to write a chemical formula, what we do? Like for example, if I have to write sodium chloride, what we do? Na and Cl. Na has a +1 charge, Cl has a -1 charge, crisscross forms NaCl. Calcium chloride, calcium and chlorine. Calcium is +2, chlorine is -1, crisscross, we get CaCl2. Then we have potassium iodide. Potassium is K, iodine is I. Potassium is +1, iodine is -1, crisscross, we get Ki. KBr, HBr, HCl, all these can be formed like this. For example, now FeSO4, iron is Fe, sulfate is SO4. Iron can have +2 and +3 oxidation state. If it's +2, this -2, we get FeSO4. Sodium nitrate, NaNO3. This is +1, this is -1, crisscross, NaNO3. Okay, so like this we can see these can form different chemical compounds. So this is from the previous knowledge that you already have from class 9. In this chapter we are going to learn how to balance these chemical reactions. Okay, so this is how we write the chemical formulas. So So now we will learn what is a chemical reaction and how to balance a chemical reaction. Alright, so what is a chemical reaction? How to define a chemical reaction? In our day-to-day life, we see a lot of chemical reactions happening. Okay, some reactions happen within our body. For example, like digestion. It's a chemical reaction, right? So, like fermentation, then souring of the curd. So, all these are chemical reactions from our day-to-day life. So, what is a chemical reaction? So, it's a process in which a new product is formed, a new substance is formed, right? For example, like a simple example of a chemical change from our day-to-day life is when you bring vegetables from market. So these are in the raw form. But when you cook, the substance that is formed is altogether new. So the raw fruit and the raw vegetables look entirely different with different properties than the cooked food. So this happens in a chemical reaction. The product that is formed has entirely different property than the reactant. Okay, so now what is a reactant and what is a product? So basically during a chemical reaction, atoms of one element, they do not change into another element. Rather, there is a rearrangement of atoms that takes place. For example, if I have a reaction of when magnesium ribbon burns in oxygen, it forms magnesium oxide. Okay, so in this case, the substance which reacts, यहाँ पे जो substance react कर रहे हैं, so this is the substance that is reacting on the left hand side, that is known as the reactant, and the substance which is formed, जो नया substance बन रहा है, उसको हम कहते हैं product, that is known as the product. Alright, so this is one example of a chemical reaction taking place. Now during this reaction, the burning of magnesium in air is one such example. Okay, now this magnesium ribbon has a very basic coating of magnesium carbonate on its surface, and that is why whenever this magnesium ribbon is burned in oxygen, what happens first, it has to be rubbed with a sandpaper, okay, and then it is burned in presence of oxygen. So it burns with the white glow, and you can see the white ash of magnesium oxide. So this is an example of a chemical reaction. Then some other reactions from our day-to-day life is souring of milk, cooking of food, rusting of iron, digestion of food. All these are examples of a chemical reaction. Now whenever there is a chemical reaction, जब भी कोई chemical reaction होता है, उसके साथ साथ there are some other characteristics of a chemical reaction. For example, some chemical reactions happen with the evolution of gas, some with the formation of a precipitate, some involve change of color, then some involve change in temperature, some involve change in the state. So characteristics of a chemical reaction. We will see what are the characteristics of a chemical reaction. Characteristics of a chemical reaction. See characteristics. So it involves evolution of gas, first of all. So some chemical reactions are characterized by the evolution of gas. For example, if you take zinc granules, suppose you take a conical flask and fill with dilute HCl. If you take dilute HCl and add some zinc granules into it, what you will observe is the evolution of gas. Okay, so during this is the conical flask, okay, in a conical flask filled with dilute HCl, you will see the evolution of gas. So Zn with dilute HCl forms ZnCl2 plus H2 gases evolved. We can see this H2 gas. Now this zinc, whenever the metal reacts with the dilute HCl, you see it involves the evolution of gas. Here in this case, hydrogen gases evolved along, and this presence of hydrogen can be seen when you burn it. It will burn with a copper sound. So this is how a reaction takes place. Sometimes it involves the evolution of a gas. Another one is some reactions involve formation of a precipitate. And that is formation of a precipitate. Formation of a precipitate. Now, some chemical reactions, for example, involve the formation of a precipitate. Now, when potassium iodide solution, what is potassium iodide? It is Ki. When potassium iodide solution is added to a lead nitrate solution, PbNO3(2). So when potassium iodide is added to the lead nitrate, a yellow precipitate of lead iodide is formed. So we get lead iodide, Pbi2 plus potassium nitrate is formed. So that is a yellow PPT. So in this reaction, we can see a yellow precipitate is formed of lead iodide. So some reactions also involve the precipitation of a particular substance. So in this case, we are getting lead nitrate is getting a yellow precipitate of lead iodide, and potassium nitrate is also formed in this case. Another reaction is the reaction between sulfuric acid and barium chloride, BaCl2 and sulfuric acid. So this reaction involves the formation of BaSO4, and what are we going to get? The reaction of sulfuric acid and barium chloride will give us what? Basically, it is going to form BaSO4 and HCl plus, we will also get this BaSO4, we will get a white PPT of, barium sulfate, which is insoluble. Okay, so in this reaction is the formation of precipitate taking place. Okay, such reaction is also called precipitation reaction. Another example is the change characteristic is the change in color. Sometimes in a chemical reaction, the color change is also visible. Change in color. For example, sometimes in displacement reaction. Okay, displacement reaction, for example, we have copper sulfate, CuSO4. We have a copper sulfate solution which is blue in color. So when iron nail is added to a copper sulfate solution, what happens? The copper is displaced from the reaction and we get a green color solution of ferrous sulfate plus copper is displaced. Okay, so some reactions are accompanied by the change in color. Another property is change in temperature. That is change in temperature. So when you add zinc granules in dilute HCl, we observe ZnCl2 is formed along with the evolution of gas, and when you touch the beaker or the test tube, you will observe that the test tube becomes hot or it becomes warm. So that accompanies there is a change in the temperature. Alright. Similarly, if what happens when barium hydroxide, a chemical reaction between barium hydroxide and ammonium chloride. Okay, barium hydroxide and ammonium chloride takes place to form BaCl2 and NH4OH and ammonia and water. In this reaction, or here in this case, in the first case, what happens when zinc is added to dilute HCl, and ZnCl2 is formed, and we can observe that the test tube becomes warm. But in the second case, when the barium hydroxide is added to ammonium chloride, we observe the formation of barium chloride, ammonia and water is characterized by the change in temperature. In this case, there is a fall in temperature. There is a fall in temperature because it is an endothermic reaction. We can see the test tube becomes very cold. It becomes very cold. That means in this reaction heat is absorbed. So this is another characteristic of a chemical reaction. Okay. Last is the change in state. Change in state. How does this happen? So some examples of the change in state is the burning of a candle. Now we know that melting of wax is both a physical change and the burning of wax is a chemical change. So here in this case, what happens when the wax melts is a physical change, right? So a solid is changing to liquid, and then the burning of wax, what happens? The liquid changes to vapor. So chemical reaction also involves the change in the state, change in the phase of a particular reactant. Okay, so these are the characteristics of the chemical reaction. Next, we are going to learn what is a balanced and what is a unbalanced chemical reaction. So in the next class, we will learn the balancing of a chemical reaction. Thank you so much, and if you like my lecture, kindly like and subscribe it. Thank you.